Good morning, traders, and a happy Wednesday to you all. Hope that y'all had a nice evening there. We certainly had some nice action in the markets unfolding overnight, so we'll have some nice items to consider here as we come into our day session here today. We do have a PPI figure out this morning, and then Empire State Manufacturing Index. So got a couple things there, 2 data points there to be aware of at 8:30 Eastern, and then outside of that, later on in the day at 10:30. We will have the crude figure, which will be extra interesting because we did not have that EIA data coming out last week. So that'll be out at 10:30 today. So we'll want to see how the crude responds to that. But with all that said, main item there will have that 8:30 data point. So we'll certainly want to see how the market handles that, considering we had quite the response yesterday. A little bit of a different data point today, but with all that said, we'll come in here and look at our daily charts. We know we had an excellent range expansion yesterday, which also coincided with nice volume there, basis that NYSE. And overnight, we've proceeded to get a decent amount of follow through. Our overnight low is 45.14 with a Globex higher overnight high of 45.3375. So nice work seeing us above the previous day's high of 45.24 in a quarter. So we've gotten good follow through. Didn't really back off much at all in the overnight session. And what we're doing, and we know that we certainly came back above the 44.83 during yesterday's action, and now with any additional follow through that we've been getting in the overnight, we're just working ourselves up a little closer towards the upper end of our previous congestion zone that we had from the end of September and going into just right before we went into the months of October. So a nice amount of work that we put in throughout this region, kind of keeping an eye on 45.56 just because we had two bodies of the bars up in that area. It does not mean that we have to immediately reach up into that zone, but should we get up any further, we'd just be kind of monitoring that, seeing how the market would respond if we end up forming any signs of loss of momentum, which for now is not quite the case. But as far as where we stand on the dailies, good range expansion yesterday. A little stretched from the 5 SMA, but that's perfectly fine because we did actually maintain and it closed at the upper end of the range from the trading yesterday. In other words, we didn't really back off too much during our intraday activity yesterday. So as we come up here in the ES, that's more or less where we're starting to maneuver ourselves back up towards as far as the daily charts go. On the intraday, for now, we don't have many signs of concern there or loss of momentum or sell divergences. Of course, 4,500, being a point where we didn't spend too much time trading beneath. So in case we had some adverse reaction and, started to work ourselves down at all, that would certainly be a point of interest below, but like we said, for now they're just kind of continuing to keep up a good portion of the momentum that they had from yesterday's trading. So all good and well in the ES. We got 45.56 half as a zone further up above. We'll keep an eye on that. And then also the previous day's high is just good to have on the sheets, even though we're well above it for now. That's at 45.24 in a quarter. So not a bad look there for our ES. And then as we move on along here, we have the DAX, also very impressive because the DAX is on the extended run to the upside, right? We had our 3, 6, 9, and then 12 closes above the 5 SMA. But what's also very interesting with the DAX is that we had a nice visible spike high to deal with during yesterday's trading, and we essentially came up and just tested that area. We did look above it yesterday, but overnight, a pretty high degree of good follow through. In other words, we're maintaining and holding above that spike. So this 15,684 has been traded through, and we're doing a nice job of maintaining it. So DAX continuing extended run to the upside. No real major causes of concern there on the daily bars. As we come down to the 240 minute, it's going to give us that same feeling, or same point of interest, 15,684 that we could see we kind of expanded up to yesterday, and then we've we've given a nice little separate, second wind above that zone, if you would. So DAX not looking half bad. Would be keeping an eye on 15,684 just because it is a point of interest. But for now, we're doing a fairly good job of keeping ourselves and holding above it. So we know these extended runs can continue on for quite some time until one, we form any type of 3-bar balance mode, or two, get the wide range reversal, neither of which we have forming there today. So DAX, continuing on its journey there, extended run to the upside, a little stronger, a little bit of a different configuration than our U.S. index futures, but that's perfectly fine. And then, speaking of outside of the Europe session here, we have that of the Euro currency. Also showcased superb range expansion up yesterday out of the 3-bar balance mode. So we know it's taken some time for this Euro currency to ripen up. We saw that nice change in character yesterday, or enough to get them outside the range. So of course, with that, you had nice readings on the 2-period rate of change, 2-period rate of change highs yesterday. So overnight, this one's the exception. We've been leaving a mild amount of consolidation overnight there. We do have the previous day's high. It's 1.0, nice easy round number there, 1.09020. So we have that going for us. And then overnight, we got up to 1.08985, so haven't quite seen the test above that previous day's high there in the EC as of yet. We certainly came close. We haven't backed off very much, but oftentimes after getting a very large range expansion bar up, especially out of the 3-bar balance mode, they at least attempt to trade towards that previous day's high on the following day. So we'd still be kind of keeping an eye on that, since that'll be looming out there. Outside of that, if we do have always nice to keep an open mind, as we know with a good portion of these markets, since we carried the ball quite a ways yesterday. Just good to note that we do have, some structural work that could be done. Does not mean that we have to go down there and do any work with that. But in something like this Euro currency, would be more so looking at 1.08525 there in case we started to move it down at all. But clearly for now, we're holding the ground. All we've done is consolidated for a touch of this hourly moving average. So we're continuing to maintain and hold the bulk of the progress that we had made from yesterday's trading there. So not bad there in the old Euro currency. And then the GC. GC also not bad. We had a nice low to high day, good range expansion. We actually came up and closed above the 5 SMA yesterday. And I haven't really tested back down towards that zone at all. That comes in at 1960 down below. So we're keeping it pretty nicely above. Overnight, we had a little follow through in the GC, just enough just to look above the previous day's high there. So that figure came in at 1975.3 for that of the gold. And what's nice is when we come over here to the hourly charts, start to see some nice points of interest, because we had all that work that we had put in up above before then, having some work to the downside. So here in the gold, we have a previous reaction high. This was from the trading done on the 7th in the overnight. Top of that coming in at 1977. So we did reach up. We've kind of already tested that in the overnight session. So what we could bring the attention to on the gold is just that this whole area up here, might end up serving. That's a pretty bad drawing there, but this little zone up here might serve as a bit of a hurdle there for the gold, because we've come up. We've already looked above the previous day's high. We're testing previous data points. So if we trade up any further, we'd be kind of working ourselves up into this window that we have there for the gold. But what we also might want to consider, it's one of the few markets that has this configuration, just a hint of some loss of momentum here on the hourly charts, in which case 1970 there would be that hourly moving average, in case the GC wanted to give us any type of feeling of reverting back to its mean after already getting, can't fault it. It had overnight follow through. We already traded above the previous day's high. So that would just be a mild pullback zone to see if we could, offer some footing and perhaps even hold if we came down any closer towards that 1970 zone. So that's where we are in the gold. Nice follow through from yesterday, though, no doubt about that. And then we have the crude here. Crude still seemingly looked like it was there in the December series. The volume was still a notch higher, but just being aware that the roll will be coming soon there for that of the crude. The CL, though, We had our 2 days of low to high coming into yesterday, and then we had our high to low day yesterday, as we so should. First day down on our 2 period rate of change. So we've already seen, in this case here, different than that of the gold, we've come down and tested the 77.48 is where this 5 SMA comes into sight there for the crude. So that's going to be a little zone we will want to be aware of. If we come over here to the hourly data, once again, this was just from yesterday's action. We had it pushed up, did some more work into this high to low bar that we had from last week's trading. So we came up, did some good work. We did the sharp up, sharp down, then proceeded to come down. So just using this yellow line here to kind of mimic where the 5 SMA comes into sight, since that's at 77.48, just have this yellow line here marked at 77.50 just to help, catch our attention there should that crude do any testing back below that 5 SMA today. And then once again, like we said, you do have that EIA figure there for the crude, so that should be rather interesting as well, and I'm sure they'll get plenty of gyrations off of that. And then last but not least here, we have that of the bonds. Very interesting with those bonds yesterday, right? With the play around that 115.12. So still think that zone or that level will be worth keeping a watch on today, since we had two separate data points there, and we did trade through it yesterday but did not close up there. So when we come into these bonds, we can see some of this has already kind of panned out overnight. We had a little loss of momentum or mild sell divergence on the bonds, so we've already corrected that back down. Looking at this zone here, of course, because we had our very large impulse bar there from yesterday's action, so just cautious between this 114.27 and 114.01. We haven't spent a whole lot of time trading and developing those zones on those bonds, so we'd be aware of that. And then as far as a zone up above, I'd be looking still at that same 115.12 there from yesterday's action. So with all that said, I'm going to get these scrunched back down here. We'll want to let this morning economic data point pan out and see what we have lining up for the day in front of us thereafter. And just for now, I'm just going to bring over this, just taking an hourly chart here of the gold, so we can kind of keep an eye on that, see how that one wants to resolve from the data, since that one has some good points of interest, right? Already made the higher high, little hint of loss of momentum, but nothing to fault in the bigger picture there. It did make some good action yesterday. So with all that said, let's see what we have coming out for this morning data point, and then we'll be on our merry way here for this Wednesday in front of us.